Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to go over 10 Excel functions that all beginners should know how to use. So I'm going to cover things like how to do a summation, how to do a max and a min, how to pull the average, how to pull the largest 5 numbers in a data set, how to pull the smallest 5 numbers in a data set, how to count the number of cells in a data set that have values in them, how to enter the date, how to round, and how to use the concatenate function and how to join values together. So in this data set, I've got a series of transactions that show quantity, price, and the total sales value. So let's say I wanted to pull the grand total and see the total value of everything in this data set. So to do that, I need to do a summation. So if I select anywhere on column G, I can hit Control down arrow, and that's going to send me to the very bottom of that column. Hit the down arrow one more time, and now that I've got an empty cell, what I can do is enter my summation formula. So start with entering the equal sign, SUM for sum, and then now I'm going to select the range here, G2 to G1000. Hit enter, and it tells me the total sum is 394,380. Now I can copy this over. Let's say I wanted to know the total quantity as well. Hit Control V here, and now the units are wrong here, but the value is right, and it copied over the units because this was the format in the sales. So if I go back up here and change it to a number, I can click here also to get rid of the decimals. Now it looks more appropriate given this is a quantity. So it tells me there's 25,169 total units sold in all these transactions. Now there's an easier way to pull the summation or do the summation. And if you're on the Home tab, you'll notice on the right-hand side in the editing section, there's an auto sum button. So if I'm directly under my data set and hit the auto sum button, it's going to generate the exact same formula that I just entered, the sum G2 to G1000. And again, I can do that as well on here. And now this time, it's not going to copy the formatting. So using the auto sum button is a quick and easy way just to do a summation. Now, there's also a third way where you can easily pull the sum, and that's using the status bar. So for instance, if I didn't want to enter a formula, I just want to quickly look at, okay, what's the total of this column? I can just by selecting this column, I can get that total. So if I go in the status bar right here and right click, there's an option for sum. Now if I select it, now it shows me the total summation is 394,380. If I check away, it tells me that sum. Now, if I just select 2 cells, it's going to tell me the sum of those 2 cells, right? So anything you select, it's going to pull the sum of those values. If I select column E, it's going to again tell me the total quantity. So using the status bar, you can quickly pull values that you need. Like let's say, even the maximum and minimum are in there as well. So I can select the total sales. I can say, okay, the minimum was $2, the max was $24.50, and the sum was $394,380. So just in a quick snapshot, you can pull those values without having to use any formulas. And so I'll switch over now to actually calculate the max and min manually. So let's say you actually did want to pull those values into your data set. What you can do is again enter equals, and this time you're going to enter max for max, and again select the data range, hold shift if you want to select more than one cell, close parentheses, and now again we got 2450, which is the total that I had when I selected all of column G. And again, I can copy this over. If you don't want to copy the formatting, what you can do is just right click copy, and then here let's say paste formulas. So this FX symbol here is the formula. So now it's going to copy the formula without the formatting. So if you do want to do a copy and paste but don't want to always have to worry with the formatting, you can just copy and paste the formulas. Now here, since the price is the same format, I can just do a Control V. So now I've got the max for all these columns. Now if I want the minimum value, then what I can just do is change the max to min. My formula is still the same. I'm just going to change it to the different function, min. And so it's, again, this is nearly identical. You're just changing the function name. And in a similar light, the average function works the same way as well. So here, instead of min, I'll type in the word average. And now it tells me the average transaction was $394.77. The average price was $15.55. And the average quantity was 25. So min, max, and average all work the same way. You're selecting the range, and then it's just a matter of selecting the right function that you want to use. Now I'll switch over to the large and the small functions. These ones are a bit different in that you need to enter in another argument. So let's say I want to pull the top 10 values from this data set. So I'm just going to enter the numbers 1 through 10 here. Okay. And large and small. So now if I want to pull the largest value, this is essentially going to be the same as if I were to pull the maximum. So again, I'll select large and I'll select all the values in column G. And if I enter the number 1, then it's going to tell me the largest value is 2450, right? Which is the same as the max value. Now, let's say I wanted to pull the top 10 values. Now, I don't want to copy and paste and keep changing the number. That's not going to be very efficient. And what I'll have to do when I'll copy the formulas down is I want to freeze these cells, because when I move this formula down, Excel's automatically going to adjust this range. See, instead of G2 to G1000, it changed to G5 to G1003. So if I click on here and click on G2 and hit the F4 button, it's going to put dollar signs around here, and that's basically freezing these cells so they don't move. Again, on G1000, anywhere on this G1000, I can hit F4 and it's going to do the same thing. Now when I copy it down, now my ranges don't change. They stay at G2 to G1000, which is what I want. Now the thing is, I would still need to change 1 and 2 and 3, and so this is still a painstaking approach and not very efficient. So what I want to do, since I've got the numbers on here, I'm going to get rid of that 1, and now I'm going to reference the value in column J. And now if I copy this all the way down, now it's going to give me the top 10 values in that range. And so now I can see the largest number was 2450. If there's duplicates, they will show up more than once. But I can see the 10th largest value was 2150. And in a similar vein, I can do this with the small function as well. So I can copy and paste this over. And here what I'll do is I need to update this, because I didn't freeze that column. If I wanted to freeze a column, well, his F4, not once, because that'll freeze everything. Not twice, because that'll freeze the row. But if I hit it a third time, it'll freeze J. So now if I were to copy this back over, it stays the same, J990. So freezing cells is useful in that sense, because if you just copy it over, sometimes you'll end up with errors or you're referencing the wrong cells. So it's a good practice to get into to make sure you're freezing cells when it's necessary. So now I've got the large function still here, so I want to change this over to small, because the small function works the same way. You select the range, and then whether you want the first smallest, the second, third, and so on, you select that number in there. But again, rather than writing it, it makes more sense to reference it, especially if you want to do it in a list. If it's just a one-off, you just want to pull the X largest number, then enter the whatever largest number you're looking for, or smallest, right? I copy this down, and same sort of thing. I've got the smallest number, which is 2, the same as doing the min function. The 10th smallest number is 5, but again, there's multiple duplicates in here. So the benefit of using large and small is you can do more than just the largest or just the smallest number. You can select, second, fifth largest, however many you want, right? Now I'll switch over from the large and small functions, and I'll cover the count function. So what the count function does is, let's say you want to know how many items you have in your data set. You'd select the count formula, and this one's similar to, again, using the sum, max, min, or the average. You can just select your entire data set. So in this case, we had one header row, and there are 900. And I don't have the count in here, but if I select count, it shows me there's 999 items that have values in here. If I were to delete one of these, it's going to automatically update 997, right? And so this is a quick and easy way to count your data set, to see what how many values you've got in there. So if you're missing values, like let's say you're on line 1000, you see there's only 997, you might see, okay, we're missing some, right? There might be some gaps in there. Or if you just want to do a summary to say, okay, this is the number of transactions we had, the count function is a simple way to do that. Now if you ever make a mistake in Excel, there's always the handy Control Z, which will undo the entries that you just made or the adjustments that you just did. Now I'm going to switch over to using the date function. So let's say here you've got your data set, you want to add to it, like here we got February 18th, 2020. If I use equals and the date function, open parentheses, I'll have an argument now for the year, the month, and the day that I want to enter. So let's say I want to enter a transaction for, let's say, January 5th, 2021. So in that case, I'll enter 2021 for the year. For the month, I'll enter the number 1. And for the day, I'll enter the number 5. Close parentheses. And now I've got January 5th, 2021. And now with the date function, there's a lot of flexibility in here, and this doesn't have to be a number. Well, you can have, like, let's say I want to add +2 in here. Let's say I want to add 2 months on top of that. It'll make that computation in there. Let's say I want to do the week after March the 5th in this case. I can do +7, right? This is not the neatest function. I wouldn't recommend doing this, but this is just an example that, you don't have to use just one number in there. If you need to do a calculation, like let's say 3 weeks ahead from now or whatever, then you can use the date function. And another function that's similar to the date function is, let's say you want to do today's date. You just enter today, open and close. There's no arguments because it'll give you today's function, today's value. So today's January 23rd, 2021. So what I could do here is I could take the date range, and let's say if I wanted to plus 7 days in advance from now, you tell me it's January 30th, right? So there's a lot of ways you can manipulate the dates just by adding onto them. Say 21 days, approximately 3 weeks from now. So you can do calculations on them. So there's a bit of flexibility with how you enter it. Ideally, you'd want to keep this clean, but this is how you'd want to enter the date, the year, the month, and the day. And depending on your regional settings, this might look a little different on your computer, but the idea is the format is still the same. So that's a quick way to enter the dates. What you could also do is, let's say I just entered Jan 23. Excel's smart enough to convert this into a date even if I don't use the date function. So if I enter this, it'll automatically change it. Now the one to be careful of is, let's say you're entering Christmas, right? Let's say December 25th, which just passed. Now if you don't enter a year, and then Excel's automatically going to assume you're talking about the current year. So it's going to go to December 25th, 2021, right? So if you're doing a previous year, you want to include the year. So if I take December 25th, I'll want to put 2020. And now it formats it properly. And another trick I'll show you with dates is, let's say you do not like this format. What you can do is select the entire column in column A, hit right click, format cells, right? And then if you go to date, there's a number of different ways that you can have it format. Let's say you want the full month, day, and the full year. You could do it like that. Obviously, it's depending on your data set and how you want it to look. You can change that. And there's more complicated there's different ways that you can show the date, but you can go to format cells, and again, there's a lot of different options there as to how it will show up. So there's a lot of different formats that you can select. And the second last one I'm going to go over is the round function. So if you want to round values in Excel, like let's say here I'm going to delete this. I'm going to pull my average up. So here I'm going to select my average, the average for these values again. And in this case, I've got decimal places, and let's say you want to round to the nearest number, what you can do is use the round function. And I'm going to select this value. And let's say I want to round to just one decimal place. Hit the number once. Now it gives me 39480. If I drag this over, again, it'll do the same thing. It'll round. Let me just fix the formatting on this one. And so now it'll round, instead of 2519, it'll show 2520. So now this would allow me where I can just remove that extra decimal point. Now if I wanted to round to a whole number, I can just change this to 0, and now it gives me 25.0. Now if you're rounding to a whole number, then perhaps you don't really want to keep the decimal place, and then you just get rid of it entirely. So this would allow you to, no matter what, even if you show decimal places, it'll show zeros on there. Now if I were to get rid of the decimal places like 394.77, it's going to show 395, but it technically hasn't rounded it. For instance, if I got rid of the rounding function, 39477, that's still technically there. It's just I'm just not showing it. So these decimal places, this doesn't mean that you're rounding it. This is just how many decimal places you're showing. So this value in here, that still exists in here until I actually round it. So I've got the average function in here. And so if I embed that within a round function, now I'm going to say I'm rounding this average to 0 digits. I just want a whole number. Now I've actually changed the value on it. So just simply changing the decimal showed, that's not going to impact the value. The value is still going to stay there. If I hit Control Z, that value is still there. I'm just not showing it. So these buttons here affect what you're showing, but until you actually use the round function, you're not cutting anything, not cutting any values off. You're not actually rounding at any point. And there's an option. There are functions to round up and to round down. So for instance, if I wanted to round up, you can select 0, 394. This would be round up to 395. This would round up to, and I've kept all the decimal places. Right, so this would round up to 15, and this is how you'd expect it to normally round. In this case, when you're rounding up, it's 2519. You wouldn't round up to 26 by default, but because I've selected round up, it's automatically bumping up to that next number. If I go to round down, then it's going to go back to 25, and then this is going to become 394 instead of 395. So for the rounding, you can do the round, which will do your normal rounding, where 0.5 and up. We'll go to the next number. Anything under will round down, or you can actually force a round up or round down based on the formula, based on the function that you select. All right, and now the last option, the last formula I'm going to go over is concatenate. And so what concatenate does is it allows you to join values together. So let's say I want to create a new field that says store and rep, And so what I can do here is if I enter concatenate, right, and here it's abbreviated, I can select the store, comma, rep, close parentheses, and now I've joined those two values together, right? And now I can add more items if I want to do, right? If I wanted to join all of this stuff, I could, and it's just going to group them all together. Now when you concatenate, you're probably going to want to add some spaces in between. So what I would do, concat, I'm going to select, let's say, the store, and then I'm going to put comma, and now I'm going to put some empty quotes. So I'm going to hit the quotation marks, hit space, quotations, and then I'm going to select the next value. So now I've got a bit of space between the text, so it's not that messy. If I wanted another value, again, comma, and then quotes with an empty space in between, hit the product, close, and now I've got that in there. Now another way to concatenate, the way I always use the ampersand. So for instance, I can select store, hit the ampersand, and now again empty quotes, ampersand again, sales rep. right? And so I can replicate this. And this is a lot, I find it's easier than using the concatenate formula because I've been using it for longer. But you can just enter it straight away without entering the formula, so you're already right in there without having to remember the formula, right? You're just using the concatenate symbol. Okay, so that in a nutshell is, and I'll show you actually one last thing I'll show you. So one useful tool if you're copying formatting over is Excel has this handy format painter if you've never used before. If I want the same formatting applied to this field, I can hit the format painter, click that cell, and that'll automatically take care of that formatting with me. And so I can select the entire column, let's say, and apply to the same column. So that way it takes the headache out of remembering what font did you use, what text size, what color, and that sort of thing. You can just use the format painter. It's going to replicate the entire thing. So that in a nutshell is the 10 functions I think all beginners should know how to use in Excel. I hope you found it useful and learned something, and thanks for watching.